TV. Are we ready back there? All right. Hello. I'm Jay Ellis, Associate Teaching Professor in the Program for Writing and Rhetoric here at CU, and the Faculty Advisor for Hindsight, Creative Nonfiction. We're here tonight to launch a new title, Changing Skies, Writing Through the Climate Crisis. This is thanks to Scott King's Mission Zero initiative with the Program for Writing and Rhetoric, or PWR. Mission Zero funded 3 writing contests managed by our journal staff after my colleagues Becky Dixon, Eric Berger, and Alex Phobes led teaching writing workshops on climate change. All student writing contributors still had to get through our blind review process, which, as you'll hear later, is now open internationally. Hello, people out there. So the fact that so much writing, including contest winners, in this print issue came from CU students says a lot about the strong teaching and learning in PWR classrooms. And we are definitely featuring the work of CU students in this beautiful print issue of Changing Skies. Tonight you're going to hear some of those writers and from just 5 of our incredible 23 student staff introducing them. First, to introduce our keynote speaker, I'd like to do my favorite thing, advising journal staff, and get out of their way. Here's our editor-in-chief, Ian Hall.
Hello, and thank you all for coming out to a launch event over a year in the making. My name is Ian Hall. I'm the editor-in-chief here at Hindsight and for Changing Skies. For over a decade, we at Hindsight have prided ourselves in publishing the best in student creative nonfiction. And casting that net over the years has led to a wide variety of work finding its way onto our pages. Among those submissions, we have always been collecting fantastic works of nonfiction focusing on exploring the causes and effects of climate change. Hindsight has always held sustainability writing contests, focused specifically on prose and poetry around climate change, going as far back as 2013 when Hindsight was Journal 2020. Thanks to help from Scott King's Mission Zero Fund and from the Program for Writing and Rhetoric, Hindsight was able to focus on constructing an entirely new title focused exclusively on climate change writing. Changing Skies aptly has seen a lot of evolution. Initially, the idea was to print the journal in the spring and to launch shortly after Hindsight Volume 2. Then we decided to push it to the fall, allowing our staff to dedicate the time and care that the project needed. Working closely with Mission Zero, our teams were able to compile more excellent climate change writing and put them into the Pipe Dream project that we had started a year prior. The book you hold in your hands and is on your seats next to you is the result of several months of different teams working together on something that helps us all quantify the human experience of climate change, to understand stories from all different types of people, from all different types of places. To tell you more about climate change and the wonderful work that students are doing to help combat it is Scott King.
Thank you, and I can't tell you how excited I am for this to come out. It is simply amazing. And there's no projectors, right? I was told there's no projector, so I'm going to be brief in this. So I'm Scott King. I'm the executive director of Mission Zero, and I'm honored to be speaking with you today. This is super exciting, and I see a lot of friends and students I work with every day, which is really cool. So during the last 800,000 years, the carbon concentration in the atmosphere has ranged between 175 and 300. At the start of the Industrial Revolution, when we started to burn fossil fuel, carbon was about 175 parts per million. I was born in 1962, and the CO2 concentration had gone up to 321 parts per million. I'm 60 years old now, and in my short lifespan, carbon concentration has gone up another 100 points. We're not on a sustainable future, and we have to change. And the idea behind Mission Zero is literally working with students who are the change makers, who are the ones that are now responsible for fixing this massive problem we have. Barack Obama had a quote that I want to share with you. And he said that this is the first generation to feel the effects of climate change, and it's the last generation that can do anything about it. And so that kind of, it sits in a little bit. It's like, what have we done? What have we done to this generation? And it's not that we lived a purposely carbon-intensive lifestyle. I think we lived a normal lifestyle, a lifestyle that had genuine riches and amazing experiences for my generation. But I think we're realizing now that for us as a species and for all the species around us, we have to find a way to live more sustainably. And well, let me first, so I graduated in 1985, and I was an electrical engineer, so I did take one writing class. It was a technical writing class. But what was more important in my experience at CU is I met my wife, Tracy, there. Tracy's with us tonight, and Tracy is the reason Mission Zero is here. She is the reason, I'm still sane, if that's barely sane. And so I wanted to thank you, Tracy, for all of your support and help during this entire process. So, thank you. So we got married right after school. It was, got married, got a house, got a job. After a while, we had 3 kids, Kelly, Maddie, and Andrew. All 3 of our kids went to CU. Andrew graduated last year. And Kelly, our oldest daughter, is having her first child in February. So we're going to be grandparents for Sophie. That's going to be cool. So my middle daughter, Maddie, had talked about not having kids because she was feeling anxious about the environment that she would be bringing children up in, and feeling like we had already had too many people in this world already. So it's hard. It's hard for kids. I talk to a lot of students all the time, and there is anxiousness in the student body, and it's the uncertainty of a future that they don't feel like they control. And I get that. It's hard. So the idea that we can allow students to express themselves in the stories that they created in this publication about the experiences and feelings that they have on climate change is inspiring. It really is. So what you've created here is something that I think when people look at it are going to change the way they think and behave. I think the storytelling that you do and the emotion and raw personal feelings that come out of these stories touch people. And they touch people to a point where I think you'll change people's behavior. And they'll understand that we live on this world with all the other living organisms, and we need each other. Everything is connected, and for us to survive, we have to create a symbiotic and balanced environment for all living creatures to survive. I don't know if I want to talk about this, but I'll give it a shot. So Mission Zero started actually in a pretty dark place for me. I had, so I'm an engineer. I think of things very analytically. And during the pandemic, it was a time of isolation, and it was pretty scary. We had a government I didn't feel like was doing a good job in how we responded to it. And it got to a point where I felt like our government wasn't going to be able to figure out how to solve big problems like climate change. Pulling us out of the Paris Climate Accord, saying dig more coal, didn't feel like we were headed in the right direction. So I started building a bunker. I woke up one morning and I said, what are you doing? And I realized at that point that, well, first I talked to Tracy about it. She said, just go back to the garage. I don't want to talk to you. But I realized that there's probably more positive and supportive work I can be doing than building a bunker in my backyard. And I thought about it. I had been working with the university and the entrepreneurship program at Leeds School, and I realized how much impact faculty have on students, and especially what they learn and how they learn it. And I thought about, one of the things that, created that anxiety in me was the massive problem and the feeling that an individual has no control. An individual is powerless to do anything. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And so I started to think about, well, what if we graduated everybody from the university, every student understood the science, understood solutions, and could take that knowledge and be the change makers when they left the university and the companies that they worked for. Could that solve the problem? Could that be the key to us helping them navigate this immense challenge in front of them? And that's what Mission Zero is all about. It's working with the faculty to help build curriculum and programs around climate in every single course, and it's supporting students in that work. And when I came to CU and started going around the school and saying, how can a donor support the faculty in doing that, I talked to the PWR department, and it was right after the dark moment of my life. So it was an interesting conversation. You can talk to them later about that. But the work that Jay Ellis was doing in the Hindsight magazine was super interesting to me because as a marketer, I believe that the way you connect with people is through storytelling. And that if you can tell stories in a way that can cut across the divides and the chasms we have in our society today, maybe we can start to work together on this problem, which is everybody's problem. And so we came up with this idea of, can we come up with a writing magazine that talks about climate change and talks about it in stories that can move people. And I'm still in disbelief that this quality of a product came out of that exercise, and I am so very proud to be part of it. So thank you so much for that. And for the students here, you're fighting for the future of humanity. And I believe this, I believe that yours is a future that must be bold, it's a future that must be hopeful, and it's a future that must be determined. And I feel like it's my generation's job to support you in that. So thank you.
This is Eid. I'm an editor here at the Journal, and I have been on staff for Hindsight since last fall. Sorry. Yeah, so I've been on staff for a year now, and this semester we're doing the Climate Change Journal, which is our new the second journal that we publish on December, or like this month. And I really wanted to be part of that journal, but due to my tight schedule, I wasn't allowed to take the class. So I talked to Jay, and I told him that I wanted to be a volunteer and just work on my free time. And he was like, yeah, sure. So for those who are watching the stream, and those students who are here, if you want to take this class, if you want to be part of this project, but you're unsure about your ability to take the class, maybe we can figure something out. I would still, though, highly recommend taking this class. You get to meet a lot of nice people. You get to see the fruition of your work, like this lunch. And if you're really about it, and you work really hard, maybe you'd want to have Jay write you a recommendation letter one day. We're going to have Marissa talk more about the journal, but for now, I want you all to open page 62, A Study in Inclusiveness, and follow as Tasha Smith reads her piece.
Thank you.
Hello. If you venture just below the equator and veer towards the east coast of Africa, you will reach Zanzibar. A quick snapshot reveals pristine white beaches framed by lush greenery. The forests are home to monkeys, antelopes, and lonely leopards who bear their endangered status like weights upon their chests. Chances are you will never catch one, as generations of elusiveness guide the leopard's careful slink through the shadows of the palm trees. On these islands live old gods, their hands weathered by the elements. The dirt underneath their nails is a remnant of their good work. Unassuming at first, they form the tenets of knowledge and stability for the local communities, and in their blood runs generations of quiet observation, as much a part of the landscape as the motion of the clouds. It is strange to think about our instincts, programmed into us from generation to generation. Is my love of the summer rain, of parchment paper, really the love of my great-grandfather passed down to me? I am sad to see the smiles of the Zanzibari farmers wane when they describe the recent drought. It is mumbled in speechless statements as they wring their hands and run their fingers through their beards. Less water means less harvest. The main island and its cousin Mafia Island were once called the Spice Islands due to their spoils. But now that the rain has stopped nurturing the soil, the livelihood of the farmers is put into question as their profits suffer. The available fish are smaller, less hardy, shrinking as the hunger of their hunters grows. There's a certain feeling of loss associated with the change of the only things we think of as stable. The earth is a funny thing because it's not something that we have ever truly owned or could ever truly own. She does not belong to us, and yet we have grown up with her, and we have thought ourselves attuned to her cycles. And who are closer to the earth than her protectors, those who tend to her gardens and harvest her fruit? Something about this way of living seems more attuned to our purpose. The farmers have done nothing to upset the natural order, and yet they suffer. The loss is infinitely more severe because it is felt by countless generations of people who have been born on the island and put to rest on the island. It is felt by future sons and daughters who will sense that something has changed, that something is not right, in the very core of their beings and in their bones. Thank you for coming.
Hello, my name is Edward Kincaid. I'm the managing editor of Hindsight, and more importantly, I'm the assistant managing editor of Changing Skies. Today, I'll be reading you a short poem by Tamar Shapiro Tamir called NYC 20th Century. Tamar is an alumna of Smith College. She has previously published plays, short stories, and poetry. You can read the first chapter of her novel Extrema at therightlaunch.com. So without further ado, here is her poem, NYC 20th Century. Please flip to page 66 if you want to follow along. Remember the big ships in the harbor, the worn, the tired, the huddled masses that shuffle off them, spending their last coin for a place to rest their heads tonight. Remember the buildings that rise ever higher, threatening to, when they inevitably tumble down, take the sky with them. Remember the time when man literally reached his peak, when he made himself equal with the gods, when he built an empire on a base of democracy, on a grid of lies, on the backs of woman, child, and animal. Remember this tall, proud city, this shining emblem, this new Rome. Remember what happened to Rome? You will. You will remember when you watch the sky come crashing down into the sea, squashing the city flat, sending the ships under in a huge tidal wave that will rise up, towering into the universe like the skyscrapers before it, that will come back down and wash over teeth, eyes, everything. Remember as you suck in one final deep breath. Remember as you dive beneath the surface. Remember for the millennia that you drift through oblivion. And when the world rebuilds itself and a new race of beings comes to power, resurface, and tell them what you remember. Thank you. All right, next up is Marissa Lang.
Thank you, Edward. Hello, I'm Marissa Lang, the managing editor of Changing Skies. We were very impressed by the quality of writing and art we received for our first ever volume of Changing Skies. In addition to receiving submissions from CU students, we received some from across the globe, including places such as Australia, Canada, China, and Jordan. Since going international with our other journal, Hindsight, earlier this year, we only hope to become more recognized in the journalism community. If you're considering joining staff, we offer a variety of ways to do so. Students can take Writing 3090, which is a 3-credit course. If you're not an upperclassman or don't have time to make it to the practicum, you could take a 1 to 3 credit internship, which is what I'm doing. Any student, ranging from freshman to super senior, can join for credit. Additionally, we offer volunteer opportunities, so we can even accept graduate students. I joined staff spring of this year as a freshman. Since then, I gained so much experience. Working for this journal didn't just improve my writing, but also improved my leadership skills, communication skills, and much more. I also gained some helpful knowledge on commonly used programs such as Adobe InDesign. You don't have to want a career in writing or journalism to get a lot out of joining. We are an ever-growing family. Everyone in the journal works very closely together, and I'd say that I definitely made some friends along the way. If you'd like to join, we would love to have you. Now, I would like to introduce our next reader. Please flip to page 93 to follow along as Isabel Cease, a CU student who grew up here in Boulder, reads her piece, The Unfortunate Truth of Sunscreen in the Cloud Forest. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you all for being here. The cloud forest made me feel small, weak even. Standing atop the mountain, I was completely vulnerable. I had little control of the earth below me, a feeling somewhat unfamiliar in the days of technology and suburbia. For my whole life, I felt as though I had power over my surroundings. But here, in the middle of the cloud forest, I was defenseless. And while daunting, it was also peaceful. I found comfort in the idea of my own insignificance, realizing that my problems were trivial in a world so vast. The blisters on my feet and the sweat permeating from my t-shirt did not matter, at least not here, in the face of the majestic cloud forest. Although I didn't know it at the time, I had just experienced a glimpse into the sublime. Alain de Botton, British philosopher and founder of School of Life, describes the general consensus of the sublime to be by virtue of their size, emptiness, or danger, a variety of hitherto unconnected landscapes, such places that provoke indefinable feelings that is both more pleasurable and morally good. In other words, the sublime consists of vast landscapes that arouse the mind to feelings above human comprehension, a pleasant mix of fear, wonder, and peace. However, the definition of the sublime is, and as most things are, complex. De Botton explains how, in the eyes of 18th century Irish philosopher Edmund Burke, sublimity had to do with a feeling of weakness. A landscape could arouse the sublime only when it suggested power, a power greater than that of humans, and threatening to them, meaning that in order for a landscape to evoke feelings of the sublime, it had to make the person feel small and insignificant in the process. Not in a humiliating way, but in a way that demands awe and respect. Sublime locations have the power to show us how our creation was at the hands of something greater than us, a higher power, a force that continuously reminds us of our own fragility and insignificance. In the case of the cloud forests, the vast network of trees reminded me of my own insignificance, not in a malicious way, but rather it returned my ego to a humble state. It helped me to understand my place on this earth, allowing me to accept the things I cannot control and find peace within the frenzy of life. Honey, do you want any sunscreen? My mom called from below, jolting me out of my stupor. While annoyed, I was also grateful. My back was already the color of a ravishing sunset due to my own ignorance on a hike the day prior. For being in the cloud forest, there aren't many clouds, a man standing behind us joked. We awkwardly laughed, but unfortunately, it was the sad truth. Cloud forests portray very unique geographical and climatic features. They exist within higher elevations of tropical regions and are sometimes called montane forests. Their distinct weather patterns are a result of moisture-laden air currents from lowland oceans that move up the mountains, cooling and condensing as they rise, due to cooler temperatures as elevation increases. Subsequently, areas become enveloped in consistent cloud cover and high rates of precipitation. The unique weather patterns in the cloud forest yield an abundance of fascinating biodiversity ranging from epiphytes to venomous snakes. Although these cloud forests make up a small percentage of Earth's landmass, they generate a significant portion of the world's biodiversity. Unfortunately, due to the planet's rising temperatures, we are seeing a significant decrease in the cloud cover. Species that previously occupied lower elevations are beginning to migrate up to areas that have a more temperate climate, and species that relied on the previously cooler environments in the cloud forest are beginning to die off as temperature rises and precipitation decreases. Although we often hear about the bleak futures of our cherished natural landscapes, we rarely see the sad truth. Artist Hannah Rothstein creates a visual depiction of the future of our national parks through her collection, National Parks 2050. These pieces illustrate our national parks as toxic wasteland, just juxtaposing our current lush and vibrant parks with images of stark and desolate landscapes. In the posters for Yellowstone National Park, Rothstein illustrates one poster with robust geysers and bright colors, including the words, nature walks, field trips, and campfire talks, shedding light on the aspects of national parks that we are so accustomed to. In the other Yellowstone National Park poster, Rothstein illustrates the remnants of a geyser and a grizzly bear whom you can see virtually all of its ribs. The coloring in the poster is darker as well, using more grays and muted colors to depict the overall mood of the environment. The words in this poster are disappearing geysers, dying trout, and starving grizzlies, providing a rather grim feeling to the piece. By providing both depictions of Yellowstone side by side, Rothstein illustrates humanity's effects on the environment as we enter a new era of life through climate change. She instills a sense of horror and fear into the viewer through the sheer vastness of the environments, which could fall into the category of the sublime, yet through a different understanding of it. Rather than depicting the sublime through the more common definitions, Rothstein can create visualizations for a new understanding of the sublime, the toxic sublime. Jennifer Peebles, an associate professor in the Department of Language and Philosophy and Speech Communication at Utah State University, describes how the toxic sublime refers to the tensions that arise from recognizing the toxicity of a place, object, or situation, while simultaneously appreciating its mystery, magnificence, and ability to inspire awe. In other words, the toxic sublime is a result of the intense emotions inflicted by beautiful places that have been altered due to toxicity and pain, leading to the similar feelings of wonder and fear that the typical sublime invokes. The idea of the toxic sublime is fairly new. However, that doesn't undermine its relevance. As climate change rapidly alters the planet, the toxic sublime is inevitable for the most fragile and cherished locations, such as the montane cloud forests. I thought back to our nature tour the day prior. The guide explained how climate change is driving the clouds away because the temperatures on the mountains are too warm for the clouds to condense, leading to a much drier rainy season. Even more so, these changes are happening rapidly. He told us that the rainy season shortens by about 1 week every year. When I was a kid, we rarely saw the sun during the summertime. Now, the sun is out every day. He said somberly, I fear that even my own children will never experience the cloud forest in its full beauty during their lifetimes. It seemed as if he were going to cry. They are saying that these forests may not even be around in 15 years or so. I looked around, trying to grasp what he just said. The forest surrounding me was teeming with life. Moss wrapped around almost every surface, and the buzzing of the cicadas was deafening. 15 years. That is shorter than my own lifetime. In fact, I was starting school 15 years ago. In the grand scheme of our planet, 15 years is nothing, and for forests that have existed since before humankind, the loss is devastating. Climate change is occurring at an exponential rate in virtually every ecosystem around the world, and we are running out of time to stop it. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Kaylee Stenberg and I am the senior editor at Hindsight this semester. This next piece is one of my favorites in Changing Skies, and it's a wonderful piece to begin closing out on. Unfortunately, the author, Spencer Stepanek, couldn't be here tonight, but I will be reading instead. So please turn to page 100 to follow along. My Plastic Dinosaur by Spencer Stepanek. Consider this massive irony. I made a recent purchase after browsing the toy aisle. Boxes lined the shelves with images of small building bricks. This system of connecting components was known to practically every child to have been the most amazing thing ever. Some of their products depict quite realistic things. Maybe you want to build a car, or a house, or a dinosaur. I like dinosaurs, so naturally I was captured. This one had 2 horns, green skin, and 4 stubby legs. I stared for a moment while I constructed it in my head. Nostalgia and other primitive, childlike sensitivities overtook me. I ripped it from the shelf and clutched it close to my chest. A sad thing would overcome me when I revealed the box's contents. It was all as expected. Pouring the box onto your workspace reveals not but many small pieces in many small bags. I tore through the plastic bags it came in and threw them away. I had all the pieces lined up in a pile in front of me, those which would have been a dinosaur if I didn't freeze up. I stopped right in my tracks and considered the following. These small, versatile blocks are all made of plastic. Plastic is a petroleum product. Petroleum is derived from crude oil, and crude oil is derived, hear this, from dead dinosaurs. My heart sank. Never had I seen a greater symbol for human vanity than this pile of processed materials lying in front of me. They snap together and sit there. What a pathetic afterlife. Once, long ago, they died and sank into the ground. A triceratops would cry and wail in pain for just a brief second. Its life flashed in front of its eyes, and then it became a product, a good. Millions of years later, we suck the essence of their lifeless bodies out of the ground. We drill and drill just to reach one of those lots of gas or oil. This process frightens me. I had never before thought of the implications of desecrating another life form so vividly. We literally used their aged, rotting corpses to sustain our little selves today. I was unmoved when a dear friend of mine commented on my detail. Actually, she interrupted, most of the petroleum underground was made from plankton. Thank you. But still, I stand perturbed and moved by this sad paradox. Since I had dug around in my own time, the building bricks, which everyone regards as their favorite, are a plastic called ABS. This injection moldable stuff is made from dripping polybutadiene in acrylonitrile and styrene monomers. Much of that is bad for you. Some of it could kill you. Acrylonitrile is quite toxic and deadly, but one of the components, styrene, is derived from petroleum. That's what those huge smokestacks are doing, burning crude oil and gas. And petroleum is dead dinosaurs. Partly. Enough. This flung me into a woe so immense I considered skipping school. I considered crying. I considered re-involving myself with 350.org, a climate activism group that hates crude oil as much as I do. I was distraught over the fact that we are literally rebuilding these massive creatures at a bite-sized scale, perfect for grabby hands of children. It hurt me that this principle goes so severely overlooked. Who cares about dinosaurs? We make fun of dinosaurs all the time, despite their name meaning terrible lizard. As big and as horrifying as they were, they still died, each and every one. Maybe that's why it's so easy to poke fun at them, given that there's no chance one will storm into your house and eat you alive. Now they exist solely in our image, on our bed sheets, in our books drawn for kids, and as plush, huggable animals. Our image is one of quaint benevolence and aesthetic disposition. We would show our kids these things now and rock them to bed while they grasp at a 50-foot-tall beast. Yes, I had to look that up. Do you know how tall the Bronchiosaurus could get to be? Exactly. And now they stand, so valiant, a mere 4 inches. In a way, it makes me glad for the dinosaurs. They had the luxury of living without others tainting their bountiful planet. Humanity is doomed to sit and watch. It is torture to sit and wait for the day when banks stop investing in crude oil, if that day comes. If I were a Triceratops, though, I wouldn't give a single damn what other dinosaurs were doing to the earth. I wouldn't feel so accountable. But staring at my plastic dinosaur makes me feel responsible. I am furthering the irony with this quaint scene, a green Triceratops made of many small plastic bits. I feel a collective shame that humanity should bear together. I feel the shame of a movement in climate action that's larger than me. I want this irony to end. I only hope that when humanity sees our final days, it is not the notion of this plastic dinosaur, our addiction to crude oils and other gross things that led to our demise. And so here it sits, here on my table, pieces of a forgotten legacy. I try not to think about it. It's a symbol for our own end as humans. To be honest, it is quite close to driving me mad. I cannot shake the notion that someday, some alien thing will go for commerce and come back with a small plastic human. They will sit there with it and attempt to disregard the plastic in the item. They might end up thinking about how those materials came to be. They'll think of why the sky is dark and black and why the air is repugnant. And they might just blame it all on the tiny human sitting on their desk. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out. I want to thank Mindy Slaughter for unbelievably hard work getting us this venue for tonight, and for 100 other things that she, Linda Nacita, and Andrew Gillenwater, as well as the student staff and PWR's front office, do in support of Changing Skies and other Hindsight projects. Last year's interim director, Steve Lamos, helped us get our PWR connections with Mission Zero up and running. And the PWR's new director, John Stevenson, has been an enthusiastic supporter of the hard work students do on these 2 journals a year now. Be sure to talk to our contributors before they become too famous, and talk to our staff, especially if you'd like to join us in the spring when we'll be launching Hindsight Volume 3. We're looking forward to continuing Changing Skies with more online content. Be sure to talk to Scott, especially if you're looking to help him with his fundraising for Mission Zero. And we're looking forward to our ongoing work with Mission Zero. Good night.